How's everyone doing today? Awesome. So, disclaimer real quick, I am an engineer, much like most of you here. I'm not a public speaker, so I'm probably going to stumble a few times, so please definitely bear with me. I'm incredibly nervous to be up here, so. Thank you. And I would definitely like to give a shout out to everybody behind the scenes, everyone who's coordinating this, all the marketing coordinators, all the stage help. So definitely another round of applause for them because this conference has been amazing. So we are here to talk about adoption. But before we start, with a show of hands, who here in the audience thinks they have a solid handle on adoption in their environment right now? Okay, I think I see one person. So we're actually going to go ahead and ask you to speak next, so go ahead and prepare yourself. But a little about me and the company that I work for. My name is Justin Dame, and I'm the Senior Systems Engineer here at Visa. Not sure if any of you heard of us, but we may be in your wallet. And no, before you ask, I can't help zero out your credit card bill. It's the #1 question I do get asked. But we at Visa, like many of you, likely purchased Nexthink because you wanted a deeper understanding of what was happening at the endpoint level in your environment. And if you're anything like we were, you realized very rapidly that this tool can do a lot. And I'm sure you guys have all heard the phrase, many hands make light work, and that can't be more true than with this product. But how do we accomplish that? Well, first off, what is adoption? And what metrics do you use to define it? Well, unfortunately, I can't answer that for you. You're going to have to define that for what makes sense for your organization. However, we can talk some strategy. But before we do that, we need to start with a problem statement, not a solution. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to think back to when you first implemented Nexthink into your organization. I want you to keep that fresh on your mind. What was that initial ask of the product? What was it that you were trying to do with that investment? Now that you have that on your mind, how do you get from point A to point B with the least number of steps? But more importantly, what are the success criteria that you define for that? For some of you, it may be simply creating an automation process for your L0 and L1 teams. For others, it may be an upcoming device refresh initiative, and you need real-time, accurate data to help push that project into the right direction. Well, regardless of what it is, you need to define the problem and then create the solution. Now, I want you to try to put yourself in the shoes of another department. I want you to try to think like they would and do the same exercise, but this time in their context. Now, unless you work for a company where you must wear many hats or happen to be in a background in their specific lane, it's very unlikely that you're going to anticipate their exact needs or even what their current roadmap objectives are. You need to start building that relationship to gain trust so you can understand what problems that they have and what Nexthink can help solve. So how do we get there? How do we get to leverage the platform for not only our needs, but the ones of the rest of the company as well? Well, what you want to do is, or what you don't want to do is avoid simply handing off the data and the problems that Nexthink detects. When you do this, you risk being perceived as the bad guy who is merely pointing fingers and highlighting flaws in their respective lanes. This approach is the most hands-off and will only result in short-term engagement with you and their teams. It'll create a barrier to building trust and collaboration, as it seems like you're just offloading issues without offering support or solutions. Now, you also don't want to just give access to the platform and say, hey, go figure it out. This method can be honestly overwhelming and counterproductive. By doing this, you're essentially adding more stress and work to their already full plates. They may feel abandoned and unsupported, leading to frustration and lack of confidence in using the platform effectively. Ultimately, they'll likely come back to you with even more questions, which, if we think about it, defeats the entire purpose of providing them with a tool meant to simplify their tasks. Instead, it's through this collaboration that we show we're not here to make their jobs harder, but to equip them with the tools that they need to succeed. We let them know that we're in their corner, ready to assist whenever needed. This approach involves understanding their challenges and providing tailored guidance on how to leverage Nexthink to improve their workflows. By doing this, we build trust and demonstrate that we're genuinely invested in their success, not just forcing another tool down them. Offering support and celebrating their successes will further strengthen this partnership, making them feel valued and supported. Now, let me give you an example of what this looked like at Visa and how we ended up using this to partner with another team and what that ultimately led to. So, Nexthink had detected an issue with a security agent that was causing performance issues on a growing number of devices, and it had not been previously reported through any of the support channels as it was very sporadic and not yet widely understood. However, we as the administrators of the product have alerting configured to let us know of new potential problems. And instead of just sending the data to the security team and saying, or sending them an email saying, hey, we see something going on with one of your products, go fix it, we decided this was a great opportunity to partner with them, do some quick RCA with Nexthink, and go to that team with not only a problem, but a potential solution as well. This started our very first true partnership leveraging the product that we realized from this engagement with this team that we had generated excitement for the product that ultimately led to more and more initiatives that were data-driven and proactive rather than chasing the solution reactively. So, as you build those relationships and the conversations progress, you'll slowly start to see that excitement lead to curiosity. That curiosity lead to advocacy. And finally, that advocacy will lead to growth of the product. And the more of these interactions that you have, you'll start to see these conversations happening more organically and without you even initiating them. People will start to hear about the success stories from their peers and actively seek you out to help them with their initiatives. Now, I'm certain you're all thinking that this all sounds great and all. How am I supposed to leverage all of these interactions while still meeting all of my deadlines and responsibilities? Well, it all starts with a solid foundation. And to do that, you need to have a governance model. And for those of you who are leveraging professional services like we are, don't do what I did during our very first meeting and ignore the SDM when they say, let's get your governance model set up. Don't do that. My SDM's in the room right now, so I had to add that in there for him. But having a solid governance model sets you up for success by creating that structured environment for your digital workspace to grow and allows you to navigate the rapidly changing ebbs and flows that you will encounter. But more importantly, it's going to help you steer the ship the more and more teams want to leverage the power of Nexthink. You want to make sure that your governance model covers things like intake requests, investigations, dashboards, and campaigns. You want to make sure that it covers things like best practices, so when someone tries to use the product in, say, ways that it wasn't intended for, or would ultimately be bad for the end user, you have the pushback that you need to advocate on not only the business, but the user as well. But in my opinion, the most important thing is it helps regulate the flow of information. Nexthink, as we all here in this room know, is a crazy powerful tool. And as a great man once said, data needs to either be insightful or actionable, preferably both. Then, once you have that set up, you need a way to empower your team to leverage the product in the best way that makes sense for them, but also how to use the product to enrich their job, not make it harder. So, the way that we did this at Visa was through a series of training programs that were custom tailored to their departments and proctored exams that not only gave them Nexthink certifications, but also internal Visa certifications as well. This approach ensured that each team received training relevant to their specific roles and responsibilities, making the learning process effective and engaging. The proctored exams added a level of accountability and validation, ensuring that the knowledge gained was both comprehensive and retained. By providing dual certifications, we not only enhanced their skills with Nexthink, but also added to their professional credentials within Visa, fostering a sense of achievement and motivation. Now, I didn't have to reinvent the wheel to do this either. I leveraged Nexthink Learn courses, carefully selected ones that made sense for what they needed. Now, this strategy helped save time and made the training feel much more organic and tailor-fit to their specific needs. By creating the course content, I ensured that the training was relevant and directly applicable to their daily tasks, which increased engagement and the likelihood of successful implementation. This approach demonstrated respect for their time and existing knowledge, making the learning experience more efficient and impactful. And if you use this methodology, you'll create a structure where the teams taking the training will feel like they have been given the best chance to succeed. Ultimately, what this will mean for you, or what it meant for me, was I wanted anyone who's taken the training to be able to answer confidently if, say, the CEO came to them and say, what can Nexthink do, or how does Nexthink help us? They'll have the tools and confidence to answer. And this confidence will stem from a deep understanding of the platform and its benefits, which is cultivated through targeted, relevant training. Now, by empowering your team this way, you not only enhance their capabilities, but also a culture of knowledge and confidence that can drive the organization forward. Now, what we weren't prepared for were the outcomes of these trainings. And what I mean by this is, after people started taking these courses, our login rates skyrocketed, which at first did lead to a huge influx of different teams reaching directly out to us for not only, actually, I told you, the login rate skyrocket, which led to a huge influx of different teams reaching out to us for not only access to the platform, but also interest in what the product could do. We continue to develop more and more training programs tailored to these new teams, and the snowball effect took off. Adoption, confidence, validation, expertise, and advocacy were only some of the results of this effort. But more important, we were generating career development opportunities for some of these people who were then uploading these certifications to their LinkedIn profiles. We had created a beast. But let me tell you about one of my favorite examples that was honestly the foundation of this entire talk. Each of the core steps that I've spoken about earlier unfolded in front of me, and it was then that I had realized what we had created. So, about 6 months or so ago, I got called into a meeting with one of our communications teams. They had been hearing about the successes of some of the other teams using Nexthink, and they wanted to see if it was possible to improve some of their workflows in their respective lanes. Now, this was supposed to be a very high-level introductory meeting, so I wasn't expecting that anything would get too into the weeds or too technical, and I would try to keep it as high level as possible, since everyone here in this room knows how daunting Nexthink can be. So after the problem statements had been discussed, the question was then asked, okay, so how can Nexthink help us with this? And as I was reaching to unmute my microphone, because we were remote, of course, a voice started talking whom I had not previously heard before. And instead of stopping to him, I said, okay, let's go ahead and see where this goes. And to my absolute surprise, everything that this person was saying was solid gold. To my knowledge, at the time, this person had no formal Nexthink training. He wasn't involved with me or any of my teammates, but somehow everything that he was saying was not only accurate, but insightful, but more importantly, it was in the context that everybody on the call could understand. And I learned at that moment that he had the ability to go and find what he needed on his own, and he took the relevant training for that I had developed for one of our support teams. Now, I had honestly never thought that anyone would care to take my trainings outside of being recorded or required by certain teams. And to be completely honest, when I initially created these trainings, their main purpose was, first of all, to ensure whoever was leveraging the product knew what they were doing, but second, to stop people from misinterpreting the data, taking it up to leadership, and then of course it would come back down to me and my team to fix what they didn't do to, right the first time. So my motives were purely selfish, as I wanted to ultimately create less work for myself and my team. But once somebody completely outside of the chain decided to self-learn a tool that may or may not help his team, I realized that we could capitalize on that momentum and use it to help inspire other teams. So, to wrap this up, and if you take anything away from it, it should be this. Start with a problem statement, not only for yourself, but for those teams who are leveraging the product, not a solution. Create a solid foundation with a governance model. And finally, if you want to exceed with adoption, you have to get them excited. Thank you very much. I'm Justin Dame, and appreciate your time and for dealing with me.